Peace to the 12, man. Y'all see the title, man. This historian proves that the original Buddha was a so-called black man. And I've touched on this before in my videos. But in this video, I'm going to go to a historian. This man right here is an historian. He was born in the 1700s. He goes by the name of Godfrey Higgins. I've featured him on my channel multiple times. And he's going to assess through his historical work that the original Buddha was a black man. He's also going to reference other historian contemporaries of his era that said the same thing, right? So this historian proves that the original Buddha was a so-called black man, right? You know what's funny too? I was going to do this video. I was going to upload, or I was going to record this video, but I saw this guy, the Saints of the Most High. He was going to say the Negro origins of Buddha, and I was like, I'm gonna wait for this. Maybe he's gonna drop some receipts that I didn't know about. And of course, he just goes to Anacalypsis, you know, which kind of bummed me out because I already knew about Anacalypsis by Godfrey Higgins. But nonetheless, and just to let y'all know, I've done videos on this in the past. I did a video a year ago and a video 11 months ago, right? And we're going to go to his historical work. I ain't even going to be here too long to chat. So let me show you a couple busts of a Negro Buddha. As you can see, this is a so-called African man. And look at his hair. This is a bust of a Buddha head, right? This hairstyle that's commonly found on Buddha is what's known as Bantu knots, right? And as you can see, Negroid features. You know, the first original Buddha was a black man. Really, the first original Buddha is Nimrod, but we'll get there on another video. And before I go any further, because after this slide, we're going to get into the historical works. Leviticus 26:1. This is not to say that people should worship Buddha. Of course not, because Leviticus 26:1 says, "Ye shall make you no idols, nor graven image, neither rear you up a standing image, neither shall ye set up any image of stone in your land to bow down unto it, for I am the Lord, Yahawah, your God." Right? So this isn't for you to worship Buddha, man. That's madness. And someone can say, well, if it's not for that, then why are you doing this video? The reason I'm doing this video is because the so-called black man in mass doesn't know anything about history other than slavery, right? Because that's all they ever do. They make a million slave movies. They don't make any more movies, right? They don't make any they don't make any Nimrod movies. There's no they don't make any Hebrew Israelite movies, right? But none of this, I digress. Let's get to it. So anyway, this is Godfrey Higgins. He was an advocate of social reform. He was a historian. See that word, historian? He was an antiquarian, and he wrote a book, a 2-volume book series, I might add, called Anacalypsis. There's volume 1 and volume 2. We're going to be focusing on volume 1, right? And he was born in January 30th, 1772 in the United Kingdom. So he was born in the 1700s. And we're just going to get straight to it because I got a lot of slides. So this is Anacalypsis. And here we go. We're going to go to page 40 of the book. The religion of Buddha of India is well known to have been very ancient. In the most ancient temples scattered throughout Asia where his worship is yet continued, he is found, check this out, he is found what? Black as jet, with the flat face, thick lips, and curly hair of the Negro. Several statues of him may be met with in the Museum of the East India Company. So he said jet black skin, curly hair of the Negro, found in India. And it's an ancient religion found throughout Asia where he's depicted this way, right? There are 2 exemplars of him brooding on the face of the deep upon a coiled serpent. To what time are we to allot this Negro? He will be proved to have been prior to the god called Krishna, which that's another in Hinduism. He must have been prior to our contemporaneous with the Black Empire. See that? Look, Black Empire. Supposed by Sir William Jones to have flourished at Zidon. And Zidon, that's dealing with the Canaanites. Like, you ever heard about Zidon, right? Zidon, first home of the Phoenicians on the coast of Canaan. City in Lebanon. You read about Zidon in Genesis 10-15. And Canaan begat Zidon, his firstborn in Heth, right? Board of Canaanites from Zidon. So that's what he's talking about. Notice he said what? A black empire, supposed by Sir William Jones to have flourished at Zidon. The religion of this Negro god is found by the ruins of his temples and other circumstances to have been spread over an immense extent of country, even to the remotest parts of Britain. So the Black Buddha made it all the way to Britain. And to have been professed by devotees inconceivably numerous. Right? And the writer he quoted from says, I do not use the word Negro because they may not have been Negroes, though blacks. Why does he say that? Because all so-called black people are not Negroes. Like I tell you guys this all the time, black is not a race. You have a lot of people, they say, I'm black, I'm this, I'm black. Black is not no damn race, right? Like, for example, I say this all the time. It's the easy example I use. The Chinese man, right? The so-called Chinese man, he does not say, I am yellow. Nor does the Japanese man say he's yellow. And they damn sure don't say, oh, we're both the same, right? They don't say, oh, we're both yellow. They don't do that, right? They have their own culture, their own beliefs, right? So black is not a race, just like yellow is not a race. Anyway, moving on. Next part, we're going to go to page 48. Same book. I'm going to be quoting from the same book pretty much the whole time. So, Anacalypsis, page 48. It says, Mr. Wilsford, in his treatise on Egypt and the Nile in the Asiatic Researchers, informs us that many very ancient statues of the god Buddha in India have crisp, curly hair with flat noses and thick lips, and adds, nor can it be reasonably doubted. So he's saying it can't even be doubted that a race of Negroes formerly had power and preeminence in India. So he's saying it can't even be doubted that a race of Negroes formerly had power and preeminence in India, right? This is confirmed by Mr. Maurice, who says the figures in the Hindu caverns are of a very different character from the present race of Hindus. Their countenances are broad and full, the nose flat, and the lips, particularly the underlip, remarkably thick, right? So he's telling you, when you go into them ancient caverns and you see these paintings and these pictures, they do not look like the current inhabitants. And he tells you why, the description, right? And he goes, this is again confirmed by Colonel Fitzclarence in the journal of his journey from India. So these are multiple accounts. And Maurice, in the first volume of his Indian Antiquities, states that the figures in the caves in India and in the temples in Egypt are absolutely the same as given by Bruce, Niebuhr, etc. Right? So they all make that same account of these black figures found in these caverns found in India, of them being Negroes. And the guy said it cannot be reasonably doubted. I mean, there's no doubt that a race of Negroes formerly had power and preeminence in India. Let's continue. We're going to go to page 50, as well as 49. Did I want to get this? Yeah, I want to get this. Page 49 as well. It says, the remains of architecture and sculpture in India, which I mention here as mere monuments of antiquity, not as specimens of the ancient art, seems to prove an early connection between this country and Africa. So it's once again early connection between this country and Africa. And really the reason this is because, like I said, Nimrod was the first ruler of the earth after the flood. Nimrod was an Ethiopian. He was from the land what you would know as so-called Africa, right? And he did go all the way to expand to places like India. And as a matter of fact, even when you look at the Egyptians, which are not Ethiopians, when we look at the Egyptian mythology is very similar. When you study the Egyptian mythology, is very similar to the Hindu mythology as far as their gods and goddesses, which are fake gods and fake gods and fake goddesses. But nonetheless, they're very similar. You know why? Because there was a connection, like this guy just stated in his assertion, between India and Africa, right, in ancient times. But anyway, he says, we're going to go down to here. He says, the various temples and images of Buddha and the idols which are continually dug up at Gaia or in its vicinity. Page 50. The letters on many of those monuments appear, as I have before intimated, partly of Indian and partly of Abyssinian or Ethiopic origin. Right? Or Ethiopic origin. So it says partly of Indian and part of Abyssinian or Ethiopic origin. For those of you that don't know, the Abyssinia is just another way of saying Ethiopian. So just to prove that real quick. Ethiopian empire known by Abyssinia. Right, Abyssinia. Now, didn't I just talk about Nimrod and him being from Ethiopia? And Hindustan, he's going to say that in a minute. Hindustan is India. When we get to that. So, he says partly of Indian and partly of Abyssinian or Ethiopic origin. And all these indubitable facts may induce no ill-founded opinion that Ethiopia and Hindustan were peopled or colonized by the same extraordinary race. Like I said, Hindustan is India and Ethiopia. See that? And that's talking about Nimrod, man. I'm telling you, man. But I might do a follow-up video. It's gonna be it'll be a lot of research I gotta do. But I might do a follow-up video on Nimrod on the Nimrod and Buddha connection. I don't know. Depends. But where was that? That Ethiopia and Hindustan were peopled or colonized by the same extraordinary race. In confirmation of which it may be added that the mountaineers of Bengal and Bihar can hardly be distinguished in some of their features, particularly their lips and noses, from the modern Abyssinians, whom the Arabs call the children of Cush. Right? So he's saying the mountaineers of Bengal and Bihar cannot even be distinguished but by a modern Abyssinian, meaning an Ethiopian. And the Arabs call the Abyssinians the children of Cush, right? Because because Cush is the father of the Ethiopians, right? The Cushites. Anyway. And the ancient Hindus, according to Strabo, differed in nothing from the Africans. Check this out. The ancient Hindus, according to Strabo, differed in nothing from the Africans, but in the straightness and smoothness of their hair, like the Dravidians. I'll show you them in a minute. While that of the others was crisp or woolly, a difference proceeding chiefly, if not entirely, from the respective humidity or dryness of their atmosphere. Hence, the people who received the first light of the rising sun, according to the limited knowledge of the ancients, are said by Apuleius to be the Ari and the Ethiopians, by which he clearly meant certain nations of India, right? Certain nations of India, and that's what the Ethiopians, where we frequently see figures of Buddha with curled hair, apparently designed for a representation of it in its natural state, right? Again, Sir William Jones says Mr. Bruce and Mr. Bryan have proved that the Greeks, this is funny too, the Greeks gave the appellation of Indians to the nations of Africa, and to the people among whom we now live. I shall account for this in the following work. Right? So the Greeks looked at Indians as Africans as well, right? Hindustan. And speaking of the children of Cush, I've already did a video on that. Y'all can go watch it 4 months ago. The Black Sons of God. You can click on popular, or you can type in Black Sun, whatever you got to do. It'll pop up. And the word Cush just means black, and it goes to Ethiopia. And it's funny too because you had several Israelites named Cush. Wonder why? Yeah, exactly. But I touched on that in this video. But anyway, he also mentioned there were Indians with straight hair. Where was it at? Differed from nothing from Africans but in the straightness and smoothness of their hair. Yeah, that's the Dravidians. The Dravidians are super dark-skinned people. They're populated 250 million. They're populated in South India and Sri Lanka, South Asia, and Southeast Asia. These are the Dravidians. They have jet black skin with so-called straight hair, right? In difference to black people who have the woolly hair he's talking about, right? And these are Dravidian girls, right? As you can see, these Dravidian girls are all darker than this so-called black family, right? And there's another straight-haired, dark-skinned people known as the Australian Aboriginals. These are the Australian Aboriginals. They're the original people of Australia. They're also dark-skinned with straight hair, right? These are, once again, some more Aboriginal Australians, right? And he also mentioned that the Greeks gave the appellation of Indians to the nations of Africa. Well, I can actually get, not a Greek historian, but I can get a Roman historian who says that the Indians were black. This is Achilles Tatius. He was a writer. in Alexandria. He was a Roman-era Greek writer of the 2nd century BC, right? And we're going to go to his work, Achilles Tatius, page 155, book 3. It says, the herdsman cried, the skipper, and tried to put the boat about and sail back. But already the place was full of terrifying savage men and tall, dark colored. Now check this out. He says, yet not absolutely black like an Indian. So he says that the Indians were absolutely black, but more like a bastard Ethiopian. And by bastard Ethiopian, he means a mixed Ethiopian, right? So he says that the Indians were absolutely black. This is what the Roman historian Tatius wrote. It makes me think of a scripture too in Jeremiah 13:23. We go to Jeremiah 13:23. It says, can the Ethiopian change his skin, or the leopard his spots? Then may ye also do good that are accustomed to do evil. Now, funny thing about how it says, can the Ethiopian change his skin? In the Aramaic Bible in plain English, it says, and as an Indian cannot change his skin, or a leopard his spots, also you cannot do good because you have learned evil. So in the Aramaic Bible, it doesn't have Ethiopian there. It has the word Indian, right? And sometimes it'll say Cushite Ethiopian, but right here it says Indian. And another thing interesting about the Aramaic Bible also tells you that the Romans were Edomites, and they were, by the way. And I've referenced that before in my video. I think it was called, what was it called? Esau and Rome or something like that. I think I included it in this video. Yeah, I did. This video, Esau and Rome, right? I proved without a shadow of a doubt that the so-called white man is, in fact, the Edomites, right? I've proved that 1,000,000 times on this channel anyway. But let's look up about the Aramaic Bible. The Aramaic Bible is the Christian Bible in Syriac, Eastern Aramaic, known as the Peshitta, which means common version. The Peshitta is over 1,900 years old. So it's old, right? And a funny thing, I'm going to include that in the Aramaic Targum, and the Targum was originally spoken translation of the Hebrew Bible that a professional translator would give in the common language of the listeners when that was not biblical Hebrew. So when we go to the Aramaic Targum, like I said, you go to Lamentations 4:21, King James Version, it says, rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwellest in the land of Uz, the cup also shall pass through unto thee, thou shalt be drunken and shalt make thyself naked, right? So it says, O daughter of Edom. Funnily enough, we go to the Aramaic Targum, the Lamentations 4, same verse. It says, rejoice and be good and be of good cheer, Constantinople, city of wicked Edom, which is built in the land of Armenia with the crowds from the people of Edom. So it's talking about the Romans here. Retribution is about to come upon even you, and the Parkivi will destroy you, and the accursed cup shall pass to you, and you shall become drunk and exposed. Right? Now, when we go here, it's still talking about the Edomites. We go to Lamentations 4:22, King James Version. It says, the punishment of thine iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. He will no more carry thee away into captivity. He will visit thine iniquity, O daughter of Edom. He will discover thy sins. And this also proves that the Edomites will be the last ruling empire, which they are currently today, because it says that the Israelites, meaning the daughters of Zion, they will no more go into captivity. And when we no more go into captivity, then will Edom's sins be discovered, right? But anyway, it says, O daughter of Edom. That's Lamentations 4:22. And when we go back to the Aramaic Targum, Lamentations 4, watch this. It says, and after this your iniquity will be finished, O congregation of Zion, and you will be freed by the hands of the King Messiah and Elijah, he high priest, and the Lord will no longer exile you. And at that time, see that, when we're no longer exiled, and at that time, I will punish your iniquities, wicked Rome. So when it says daughter of Edom, it says wicked Rome. Once again, the Romans are Edomites. Wicked Rome, built in Italy and filled with crowds of Edomites, and the Persians will come and oppress you and destroy you because your sins have been made known before the Lord. And who are the Persians? The of today, that would be Iran, right? So keep all that in mind. But we're gonna keep going back to Anacalypsis, right? I said, like, you want to read more about the Edomites on Esau and Rome, watch this video. It was an hour video called Esau and Rome. I did it 3 months ago. You can just go to my page if you're on your computer, type in the word Rome, it'll pop up. When you go to my channel, Robert Pent, right here in this little search bar, type in Rome, it'll pop up. Anyway, Anacalypsis, page 52. We're making good time, 20 minutes. We're going to hit here. It says, in my essay on the Celtic Druids, I have shown that a great nation called Celtae, of whom the Druids were the priests, spread themselves almost over the whole earth, and are to be traced in their rude, gigantic monuments from India to the extremity of Britain. And the Celts were also so-called black. He's about to say that. The ancient Celts, who these can have been but the early individuals of the black nation, of whom we have been treating, I know not, and in this opinion, I am not singular. So he's saying he's not singular in this opinion, and that he said that it was a black nation who were the Celtae among the Druids, and they were a black nation, and they came from India. Their gigantic monuments were from India to the extremity of Britain. So they had range in where they went. Right? And notice he said black nation. Important. And I'm going to get more on that later. The Learned Maurice says Cushites. Look at this. The Learned Maurice says Cushites, i.e. Celts. Right? So he says that the Celts are Cushites. Remember, Cushites go back to Ethiopia. Right? So the Cushites, i.e. Celts, built the great temples in India and Britain and excavated the caves of the former. And the learned mathematician Reuben Burrow has no hesitation in pronouncing Stonehenge to be a temple of the black, curly-headed Buddha. Right? So he's telling you right there the Cushites are black, or the Celts are black, because he compares them to the Cushites. Right? Talks about Stonehenge, temple, black, curly-haired Buddha. I shall leave the further consideration of this black nation for the present. Right? And the Celtic peoples are look at this, it's Indo-European peoples, made up term. I did a video on that already, but this is the Celts. I already did a video on that. You can watch this video called The Black Irish Clans. It was an hour and 14-minute video. I think I'm going to do some more on the Celts in a minute. Yeah, I am in this part. Page 198, 1836, or page 198, Anacalypsis. It says, my reader will observe that I have given from Mr. Faber 16 different names of Buddha. So Buddha had many names. Really, they're just many names of Nimrod, by which he undertakes to prove that he was known at different times and in different places. Right? Now we're going to go down to here. In my Celtic Druids, I have shown that the worship of Buddha, which he already said was a Negro, that the worship of Buddha is everywhere to be found in Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. Right? In Scotland, the country people frighten their children by telling them that old Bud, or the old man, will take them. In India, one of the meanings of the word Buddha is old man. Right? So he's talking about the Celts. Now I wanted to go ahead and touch on some more Celt things real quick. The Celts are a racial group which come from Scotland, Wales, Ireland, and some other areas such as Brittany. Like I told you, the original Celts were black. That's why this guy said what? Black nation, Cushites, i.e. Celts. Now, we're going to go to this guy, James H. Henderson. He wrote a book called Riddles of Prehistoric Times, right? We're going to go to page 57. And it says, the Basques in Spain and France, the Little Dark Welshmen, the Scotch, and black Celts to the west of the Shannon River in Ireland, as well as at the same kind of men in Brittany and Aquitaine in France, the Ganchis of the Canary Islands, and the Berbers in Africa are all probably the remnants of the race, right? And he's talking about Africa, right? Should have put the other part in there too, where he says these were an African people. I didn't put that, but I've used it in other videos anyway, so no big deal. But anyway, David McRitchie, another guy, he was an anthropologist. Anthropology is simply the study of the origin and development of human societies and cultures. We're going to go to Ancient and Modern Britons, Volume 1. This is a guy born in the 1800s, David McRitchie. And we're going to go to Ancient and Modern Britons, Volume 1, page 45, where he says he's going to talk about the black Celts as well. He says, the Iberians are styled swarthy and curly-haired. The word swarthy is rather elastic, for although literally Schwartz yet it's taken, I fancy, to mean something not quite so dark as the color of a Negro in its usual exception acceptation. Perhaps this distinction does not exist. Yeah, originally swarthy just meant blacks. As a matter of fact, you go to Samuel Johnson's dictionary, 1755 edition. It'll tell you that's swarthy. It'll say dark colored, and then it'll even use an example when it gives a sentence. It'll say the swarthy Africans. But anyway, but at any rate, if the small dark Highlander and the black Celt to the west of Shannon be assumed to be the descent of Iberians, it may fairly be argued that with so much intermixture with fairer races during the last 2,000 years, the stock must now be lighter skinned than then, and its representatives of the first century must have been actually as black as Negroes. So just letting you know that the Iberians, the Celts in the first century, they were as black as Negroes. Right? Now, Europe, I did a video on this already. Europe was actually invaded by people that come from the Russian steppe. I've already done a video on that, so I ain't even going to argue with nobody in the comments, if I even read the comments to this video. But just go watch that, and that video was called "They Never Evolved White Skin," and I went deep in that. But anyway, so the first century, they were black as Negroes. As a matter of fact, Pliny characteristics their complexion as Ethiopian, that is, as black as an Ethiopian. And it may be that the curliness of their hair was of the same nature as a Negro's also. Right? Thus, the Negritos of Huxley, the owners of such skulls as those found in Caithness, may have been allied to the ancient Iberians. That the wild tribes, now check this out, that the wild tribes of Ireland were black men is hinted by the fact that a wild Irishman is in Gaelic a black Irishman. Dub, right? So a wild Irishman is a black Irishman in Gaelic. And that some of the natives of Scotland as well as England were of this race also is evident when one remembers that, according to Scheme, the powerful tribe of the Damani, which was the chief of the confederacy of, what is that, the Mets, or marsh dwellers, who were part of the Picti or Caledoni, were probably relations of their namesakes of southwestern Britain, right? And even in Google, right, what he just said, he said a lot there about the being black in the first century there and all that. Well, even when you Google it, right, it'll tell you straight up the first people of Europe were black. Google. It says the archaeological, anthropological, and genetic evidence indicated that the first Europeans were dark-skinned sub-Saharan Africans who carried mtDNA haplogroup NY chromosome C6 into Europe. So Google tells you that it's archaeologically proven, anthropologically proven, and genetically proven that the first people of Europe were black. They say dark-skinned sub-Saharan Africans. Right? Other things like the Guardian, first modern Britons had dark to black skin. They talk about Cheddar Man, Daily Mail. Europeans were dark-skinned until 8,000 years ago, which they're off on the numbers. Turns out, this is Gizmodo, turns out the first British people were actually black. Right? This is Cheddar Man that they're talking about. You guys can look up Cheddar Man. He's a skull they found allegedly 10,000 years ago. This is Cheddar Man. He looks like an Australian Aboriginal. Dark skin, straight hair. Right? Cheddar Man discovery. First modern Briton had dark skin. As a reminder, we are all from Africa, expert says. DailyMail.com. GCSE pupils to be taught that the nation's earliest inhabitants were Africans who were in Britain before the English. Right? And I did a whole video on what happened to Europe, how Europe got to where it is. Go watch this video. It was a month ago. It was called They Never Evolved White Skin. Really good video. Anyway, moving on. Page 109. Anacalypsis, back on Anacalypsis, page 109. Or it's 209, Slovakia. 209. But yet there is one circumstance of very great importance, which is peculiar to Buddha, and forms a discriminating mark between him and Krishna, which is that he is continually described as a Negro. So Buddha is continually described as a Negro, not only with the black complexion, in which he agrees with Krishna, but with woolly hair and a flat face. M. Creer observes that the black Buddha with frizzled or curled hair attaches himself at the same time to the three systems into which the religion of India divides itself. Right? So he keeps bringing the Negro Buddha up over and over and over again. Mr. Moore on this woolly-headed says some statues of Buddha certainly exhibit thick Ethiopian lips, but all woolly hair. There is something mysterious and unexplained, right? Allegedly unexplained, connected with the hair of this and the only of this Indian deity. The fact of so many different tales having been invented to account for his crisp woolly head is alone sufficient to excite suspicion, right? Yeah, because they got to try to explain it away. People, oh, he's got hair like that because of whatever the hell, whatever they say, right? Anyway, he mentioned, what'd he say? He mentioned thick Ethiopian lips somewhere. Yeah, exhibit thick Ethiopian lips. Well, I wouldn't say Ethiopian lips, but I'll say a lot of so-called black people, myself included, we have big lips, and they made fun of us. Meanwhile, you got these white 304s from the valley trying to get them Kylie Jenner lips. When they put a bottle on their lips, they be effing their mouth up, man. Trying to look like Angelina Jolie. Anyway, you know, when I was in high school, man, that was the thing going on. They was really trying to do that to themselves, right? Trying to look like Jake. Isn't that crazy how they're trying to look like so-called black people, and then so-called black people are trying to look like them, right? That's a weird, it's a weird thing going on, man. Like, what people say, what do you mean? Well, they're trying to get the lips like that. They're trying to get the BBLs, right? They're trying to copy the slang. But then on the other side, you got so-called black people. They wear the weaves of the so-called white people. They get the blonde hair. They put in them contacts. They bleach their skin. So it's craziness going on both sides. But anyway, moving on. Page 216, Anacalypsis. Mr. Franklin makes an observation which is new to me, that the ancient Etruscans, and the Etruscans are the Etruscans of Italy, that the ancient Etruscans had the countenances of Negroes the same as the images of Buddha in India. This is very striking when compared with the proofs which I've given in my Celtic Druids, chapter 2. See that? Celtic Druids, chapter 2. It says 304 too. That's funny. The identity of the Sanskrit and the ancient language of Italy. Krishna having been made out to be the sun, the consequence necessarily follows that Buddha is the sun. Now, it says the countenances of Negroes, the Etruscans, as well as the Buddha in India. Yeah, the Etruscans, Etruria is a region of central Italy, right? And I'm not going to go too much into that. I've done a video on that already. But here's some pictures of the Etruscans. They were dark-skinned people, right? Brown, so-called brown-skinned people, right? Look at their hair. Even right here, you have the Etruscans, and you have someone right here. He's a so-called white man. He has blonde hair. Look at the difference, right? Ancient Italy. But anyway, once again, just watch this video. They never evolved white skin. I went over all that. And I've done a lot of videos on Europe in general. But you can just type in Europe on my thing on Robert Penn. But anyway, continuing on, Anacalypsis. Where am I at? 30 minutes in. I'm doing a good time. I'm talking pretty fast. 319, Anacalypsis. Right. We're gonna read this. It says the mysterious child alluded to in the beginning of this book was a new incantation of divine wisdom, the first emanation of the Logos solar fire, the sacred, mysterious, never to be spoken, blah, 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 blah. United to the person of Buddha or Krishna, born to be king of the people of Sion, right? Sounds interesting. Sion, of the country of Judea. Doesn't that sound familiar? Judea, Sion, of the tribe of Judah, right? Whose language was that of Bali, of Siam, and Persia. Now, doesn't that sound like the Israelites, which is interesting, right? And mind you, the scriptures say what? He's going to pull the Israelites from Elam and from Cush, right? That's the scripture, right? I'll pull them from Elam. Yeah, we have people in there. Right now, they're known as the Siddi, spelled S-I-D-D-I. And some of them even know they're waking up as Israelites. I saw one the other day. He knew he was Israelite, and he was in India. But anyway, of the people called Pali, and mind you, it said Judea, Judah, tribe of Judah, Sion. It's talking about Buddha or Krishna. But anyway, that's probably our people warping the doctrine. But anyway, of the people called Pali or Palestini or Philistines, of the black nation of Sir William Jones. Like I told you, the original Philistines were black. right? Don't be all these people free Palestine, all the people saying free Palestine and all that, right? The original Palestinians were African Hamites, right? They didn't look like the Ishmaelites that are there today. Just like the people that they're going against aren't the original people, aren't the original people either. All right, if you know, you know. All right, those that say that the you ... wish community, but anyway, of the black nation of Sir William Jones, and whose name was of the Greeks X, right? X meaning chi, right? Because what is the X in Greek life? The X is the letter chi, used by Greek organizations to identify themselves. Chi is the first letter of the Greek word for Christ. In the early days of Christianity, it was used as a secret symbol to indicate membership to the church. Really, the X is for Osiris, right? And the X is used for a lot of these religions. Like you see Osiris, he throws up the X. And no, I'm not comparing Christ to Osiris. I'm talking about the fake Christ that they worship. They're really worshiping just a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Osiris, right? That's what they're doing. And anyway, like I said, the X, look at Osiris throwing up the X. That's where they get the Wakanda Forever sign, by the way, in Black Panther. He's copying Osiris throwing up the X. I might do a whole video on the X. You know, I'm led to believe Malcolm X was compromised just for having that last name X, plus of some symbols he did, but that's another video, and I got to go into that for another day. Anyway, Apocalypse 351. It says, the reader will recollect what was said in the first book respecting the two Ethiopias, the opinion of Sir William Jones and Mr. Maurice, that a nation of blacks formerly ruled over all Asia. Let me repeat that. A nation of blacks formerly ruled over all Asia, right? And the other circumstances where the black color occurred in various ways. And now I think he would be prepared for a few questions, for which I have been from the beginning paving the way. May not this nation have been a nation of black Buddhists? Right? May not the peaceable religion of the curly-haired Buddha have pervaded and kept in peace for many generations, of which we have no history? Right? The whole of Asia. Right? So he's saying that they can't find the history of the black Buddhists. Why? Because it was probably either destroyed or it's hidden. May not the people professing it have been the Pali or the Palestini, which is talking about the Philistines, Mr. Maurice or Sir William Jones, of the Shepherd Kings or Cushites, of whom so much has been said? He talks about Zidon again as well. Speaking on that, when he said a nation of blacks formerly ruled over all Asia, well, look at this. This guy right here, this guy by the name of Jin Li, or Jin Li, right? He's a Chinese geneticist and academic administrator, right? He had a master's degree in genetics. And Jin Li made this finding. According to Dr. Jin Li, there is evidence of substantial populations of blacks in early China. Archaeological studies have located a black substratum in the earliest periods of Chinese history, and reports of a major kingdom ruled by blacks are frequently in Chinese documents. Li was asked how, he as a Chinese, felt about what he found. He said, after I saw the evidence generated in my laboratory, I think we should all be happy with that. Because after all, modern humans from different parts of the world are not so different from each other, and we are very close relatives. Right? So there you go. That's what he said. Kingdom ruled by blacks in Chinese documents. Dr. Jin Li, earliest periods. And this is just going to show a bunch of people, so-called black people, still found throughout Asia. You have the Andaman Islanders, like the Yahawah people. They're on the islands in India. These are the Andaman Islanders. You have the Sidi people, the Sidi people. Siddi, I talked about them, and they say they descend from Bantus, Africa and Ethiopia, right? And allegedly they were there. They were slaves carried over there. I think this could be the remnants of the African race they were talking about. And these are the Sidi people, and they are an oppressed black tribe of India. You got the Ada people of the Philippines, the Ada people, indigenous Filipinos. They're the Aboriginal Filipinos. These are the Ada people, so-called black people. They have afros. They have the so-called epicanthal folds, which are what you would say so-called Asian eyes. You got the Semang people of the Malay Peninsula, regions of Perak, Pahang, Kelantan, Qatar of Malaysia. The Semang people, right? These are all people that they classify as so-called Negritos, right? You got the Manique people. They're in Thailand. You got the Manique people of Thailand. You got a lot of people. Some other African natives of Southeast Asia. The At, the Manawa, the Tumandak, the Ada, the Batak, the Akta, the Manique, the Semang. Then you got these Negritos. And it names you all those people, right? So, yeah. They're still so-called black people in Asia. Right? Then you even have the Kunlun. Right? You have the Kunlun Nu, which was a romance written by Pei during the Tang Dynasty. The hero of the tale is a Negrito slave who uses extraordinary physical abilities to save his master's lover from a court official's harem. So Kunlun Nu, they said he was a Negrito slave. It was a Tang Dynasty romance novel, right? And it says, who were the Kunlun black slaves? These dark-skinned people were known as Kunlun. They were described as lower class, ignorant, scary, and dangerous, right? Don't they paint Jake like that now, right? And the Kunlun are still around, right? The African Kunlun servants, look. And they keep throwing African in there, right? Paint is depicting Kunlun African slaves. But in reality, the Negritos, according to certain genetic studies, the Negritos don't even have any relation to Africa. That's what they say. Look at this Atlanta Black Star. You can find this article on Atlanta Black Star. Why do I say that? Because I tell you all the time, all so-called black people don't come from Africa, right? But you did have Africans that invaded Asia. Those were the Kushites. But anyway, 5 ethnic groups that proved the first humans were black. And we're going to go to this one, the Negritos. It says the word Negrito, literally meaning little black person, is a term used by Spanish Europeans in reference to short black people. Specifically, the indigenous peoples who populated Southeast Asia from the Ottoman Islands near India to the Philippines, Taiwan, and southern China are also included in this distribution. That's why I said the Kunlun. Look, southern China. It says some of the Negrito ethnic groups are the Eta, the Batak, the Mamanwa, the Philippines, Semang, Oriang, Asil of Malaysia, Annamese Islanders of the coast of India, and the Kunlun Nu of southern China. They are often grouped together with the so-called African pygmies because of their physical characteristics, which include short stature, very dark skin, woolly hair, scant body hair, and steatopegia, suggesting on common origin. Now check this out. However, the study concluded that the Negritos of the Andaman Island, Malaysia, and the Philippines are on the genetic level are very distinct populations from each other and among the most distant genetically from continental Africans of all the humans on the earth. So the Negritos are way more distinct than any other race of humans on the earth when it comes to Africans, meaning they are foreign to Africa, the so-called Negritos, right? Most distant genealogically to the continents of Africa, the Negritos are, right? So like I tell you, all so-called black people don't come to Africa. Don't come from Africa. But speaking of Africa, you also have the Khoisan people of southern Africa. They also have epicanthal folds, right? So-called Asian eyes. These are the Khoisan people, right? Of southern Africa. But anyway, we're going to go to page 396 of Anacalypsis. Where we at? 43 minutes. Hopefully I can beat an hour. We'll see. Where it reads, I must now once more bring back the attention of my reader to the curly-headed, flat-faced, thick-lipped, black-skinned Buddha. Curly-headed, flat-faced, thick-lipped, black-skinned Buddha. Almost forgotten. For these singularities, we have not yet attempted to give any reason. This Negro God cannot have been the only Negro east of the Indus. So he's saying it can't be like it was just one Negro in India. It doesn't make any sense without some cause. On this subject, credible history is silent. Right? They're silent on this fact. Let us try, if we can, form a theory. Now, he's going to come to a theory. Mind you, this guy was born in the 1700s. And he's going to come to a theory that they still promote today, which is that everybody was black originally, and then they evolved into all these people that we see today, when in reality, it's more so a mutation, but I've done that before, that's confrontational. But go watch that video I did on They Never Evolved White Skin for that. But anyway, this is what he has to say. We're going to read what he has to say. I suppose that no one will deny the latter, how much soever the bigots may turn into ridicule the march of intellect or improvement of the human understanding. Right? So he mentioned the bigots. I ain't come from no black. You know, I'm sure they'll be in my comments clearly clacking, Anyway, and that he improved as years advanced and he traveled westwards, gradually changing from the jet black of India. So I skipped that. My bad. Let's go back. Now, I suppose that man was originally a Negro. Let me see what he says again. This is what he had to say. This is what Godfrey Higgins has to say. Now, I suppose that man was originally a Negro, and that he improved as years advanced and he traveled westward. See, he's promoting evolution. See that? Westwards, gradually changing from the jet black of India through all the intermediate shades of Syria, Italy, France, to the fair white and red of the maid of Holland and Britain. Notice how he said white and red. Didn't one of them come out red? Yeah, Esau eat them. Anyway, on the burning sands and under the scorching sun of Africa, he would probably stand still if he did not retrograde. But the latter is most likely to have happened, and accordingly, we find him an unimproved Negro, mean in understanding, black in color. So, he once again thinks that, but he did say everyone was originally Negro, but he thinks that they evolved, right? Meaning they progressed from being black. But anyway, watch that video I did on the Never Evolved White Skin, man. I went in on that, man. It was an hour video. But anyway, Anacalypsis, page 397. Let's see what he has to say. He says, when the equinoctial sun entered Taurus, he found man in India, like the first Buddha, a Negro, whom he entered Aries, he found him black. It is true, but with the alkaline nose and long hair of the handsome Krishna, the god of wood, of stone, of god of gold, stood still. The man in the space of 2160 years, perhaps of peace and prosperity, had materially improved. Not so with the curly-haired man of Africa. Everything tended to the improvement of the former, everything to stop the improvement of the latter. Yeah, they don't want to improve the Negro. Where was I at? I lost my place. Oh yeah, everything to improvement. Where we at? Of the former, everything to stop the improvement of the latter. In the African Ethiopia, he remains a curly-headed black. In Egypt, he formerly was so. So he lets you know that the ancient Egyptians were so-called black people, right? And this is a story in which they were. I've already done videos on that. I'll show them in this in a minute. But he says in Egypt, he formerly was so, as the Memnon, the Sphinxes, etc. prove. So he says Memnon and the Sphinxes prove that the Egyptians were originally curly-headed blacks. But in Egypt, where he became rich and civilized and where good, fairest food was grown, the same effects in great measure took place as in India. So, his theory, right? He still has a theory basically of evolution. And his theory is whenever they lighten their skin, whenever their hair straightens, they become even more civilized. That's his theory, right? Which is a theory I don't agree with, but that's his theory. But he is acknowledging that the original people were black. Where was I at? Oh, as a place of India. And if he be not quite so black, the mixture of white Europeans and comparatively speaking white Turks will account for the difference, right? Yeah, because they mixed among he's still talking about Egypt, right? The white Turks mixed with those people in that region, as well as the Arab invasion that took place in Egypt in 640 AD. That's the reason why the population of Egypt looks the way it looks today. But the original Egyptians were so-called black people. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you a couple pharaohs after I read this part. But it has been observed that the figures in the old caves of India are representatives of a very different race from the present inhabitants, right? So they don't look anything like the present inhabitants, facially wise. That although the figures possess a graceful elegance of form, yet a remarkable difference may be observed in the countenance, which is broad and full, the nose flat, the lips, particularly the under lip, remarkably black, and the whole very unlike the present natives of Hindustan. All these circumstances are easily accounted for by the reasons alleged to account for the singular appearance of the curly-haired Buddha. Right? Um, I request my reader to reflect with me upon the present state of different parts of the world. Go to Lower Egypt and look at the tenant natives, and as ascend to the Torah zone, and we shall find them to grow darker as we approach the sun, always when humanized, described as black. Right? He mentioned straight hair somewhere in there. Like, once again, the Dravidian peoples, the Aboriginal people. And also, let me show you a couple paintings and pictures. Look at these black Buddhas, right? I saw a thing on Pinterest. These are the paintings, these ancient paintings. I saw a thing on Pinterest where this so-called white man, he said, nonsense. Why is that? Because the so-called white man hates to see the black man as a somebody in history, right? That's why they spent billions, if not trillions of dollars, suppressing our own history, right? And he said also, this guy said, remarkably thick, nose flat, lips, right? Those are negroid features. Negroid features are flattish nose, flat root of the nose, narrow joints, narrow ears, right? Negroid features, right? Let's continue on. Actually, I had this all backwards here, but I'll get it now. Why did I have this the way I had it? Oh, here, yeah, this is why I had it the way I had it. We'll get it. Page 399. He's also going to say that all the gods were originally black. Anacalypsis 399. He says, very satisfactory manner that the ancient Egyptians, the masters of Thebes, were Negroes. See that? He said the ancient Egyptians were Negroes. And in the Bible, Joseph, Moses, and Paul are mistaken for Egyptians. That proves that the ancient Israelites were also dark-skinned people. But anyway, Cole Wilford says it cannot reasonably be doubted that a race of Negroes had formerly preeminence in India. These were the inhabitants of India in the time of the curly-headed Buddha, who was succeeded after 2,160 years by the long-haired Krishna, one of incarnation of the solar god in the Taurus, the other Aries. Thus I account for the Negro Buddha and for the handsome, though black Krishna. Now check this out. This is what I said about the other black fake gods. They're also black. In aid of this theory, a reconsideration of the foregoing pages will show that we have found the black complexion or something relating to it whenever we have approached to the origin of the nations. So it always goes back to black. The alma mater, the goddess, Motamemia, the founders of the oracles, the memons of or first idols were always black. Venus, Juno, Jupiter, Apollo, Bacchus, Hercules, Astaroth, Adonis, Horus, Apis, Osiris, Ammon. In short, all the wood and stone deities were black. The images remain as they were first made in the very remote times. So he just said all those gods was black, man. But he also said the ancient Egyptians, the master of thieves, were Negroes. Like I said, here's some pharaohs. I've done this before. This is the pharaoh Nebuchadnezzar of the second dynasty of Egypt. This pharaoh Nebuchadnezzar, second dynasty of Egypt, he has Negroid features. Matter of fact, this is Nebuchadnezzar. This is the rapper KRS-One. They got the same nose, right? And Nebuchadnezzar's hairstyle is a hairstyle still found among the Hamar tribe of Ethiopia. Same exact hairstyle. And I'll get one more pharaoh, Pharaoh Khufu of the 4th dynasty. This is Pharaoh Khufu of the 4th dynasty. Once again, he has Negroid features, the flat nose, full lips, and the same ears as well. Right, I've already done videos on Egypt. You can watch my video, Ancient and Modern Hebrews, where I proved who the ancient Hebrews were, as well as the ancient Egyptians. You can also watch a video I did a year ago called The Proof of Our Origins for more on that, right? And before I get out of here, I'm going to show you guys some bonus statues and busts of the Black Buddha, as well as a Black Indian definition, right? So here's some more images of the Black Buddha. You see the woman with the Bantu knot hairstyle, the Black Buddha, right? Here's the Bantu knot hairstyle, right? Here's a person of color, a black, so-called black man in European art. And here's a picture of Buddha. See how they have their hair styled, right? Here's another picture of a Buddha, black Buddha, another idol. And this is the Shang. We're also called the Naki, which literally means black. Na, Ichi, which means not man, black man. King Tang and the Shang dynasty were responsible for the unifying China to form the first civilization, 1600 to 1046 BC. Head of Oba Edo brass sculpture from the court of Benin, Nigeria. Look, they have a similar helmet, right? The Shang and the Obo, right? Here's more black Buddha with Negroid features. Here's a Buddha in Sri Lanka, 1500s. Here's a Thailand Buddha. Here's a Buddha Thailand, 800 AD. Once again, look at the hair. Here's another Buddha picture or sculpture or relief, whatever you want to say, right? And here's ancient Indian cave architecture, the Ajanta cave painting. These are some Ajanta paintings, right? So there's that. And also, let's go to a black Indian definition. If it, the N word was also used to apply to Indians as well. When we go to the N word and we study the N word, right? Let me blur this out real quick because YouTube be acting funny. But N word, which is insulting, contemptuous term for a black person, offensive word for a black person. Well, wouldn't you know? And let's get another version real quick. The N word, once again, is a racist word for a black person, right? And wouldn't you know that this term was also applied to the Indians, right? We go to the word and phrase, the facts on the file, Encyclopedia of Word and Phrase Origins, 4th edition. Shout out to Kurameo Ohau. And it says the N word, when used by a white person to describe a black or African American person. We go down here. It says the N word has also been an offensive, derogatory term applied to Indians as well as blacks up until recent times. So they also called Indians the N word. We go to etymology, the N word once again. The N word in etymology. Once again, see, Negro seemed to have used for black. It was also applied by English colonists to the dark-skinned native peoples in India, Australia, and Polynesia. So they called them the N words as well, right? And the N word, well, one more thing. Nig, that's Indian, applied to Indian natives. And also the N word is in the Bible as well. Acts 13:1. Let me go back to here real quick. It says N word. Does it say it on here? See, Niger, right? Does it say that? Somewhere. I don't know if I included it, but when you go to the definitions and you study the N word, it says it comes from the Latin Niger, right? I don't think I included it on here, but y'all can look it up. But it's also in the Bible. You go to Acts 13:1. It says, now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers as Barnabas and Simon that was called Niger, and the Lucius of Cyrene and Manaen, which had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch and Saul. And Niger means black, a surname of Simon. He was probably so called from his black, dark complexion. It's not pronounced Niger, right? It's not pronounced Niger. It's pronounced the N word. Because when you go to Strong's definition, it says Niger. See that? Niger equals black. Black, surname of Simon. Right? And like I said, he was probably so called for his dark complexion. Simon was a so-called black man. Right? Niger. Right? Latin Niger equals black. Right? So that's that. And I'm going to get 2 more books before I get out of here. 57 minutes in. I'm going to be right on an hour probably. Marco Polo, he was a merchant in 1254 in Venice, Italy. And he met the Indians and he said they were black as well. Right? He says, promises you must know that are born black, but not so black as they are made afterwards. Mind you, this is in the 1200s. Because it is true that when the infant is born, he is born fair. But they anoint him once every week with sesame oil, and that is how they make them become more black than they were born by a great deal. So that they become as black as a devil. For I tell you that in the country, he who is most black is most precious than the others in beauty. Right? Just like in that book I did, or the last book video I did on Morian, the Black Knight of the Round Table. They said that about the Moors too. They found beauty in the black. The blacker someone was, the more beautiful they were in their eyes. And is held better than the others who are not so black. Now check this out too. And again, I tell you another thing. For I tell you quite truly that they made those people have all their gods and their idols portrayed and painted very black. And the devils, they paint white as snow. So they say the devil is white as snow. For they say that God and all the saints are black. And they speak of their God and of their saints. And they say that the devils are white. And so they portray and paint them in such way as ye have heard. And again, I tell you that they make images of idols all black. And ye may know that the man. So this is the works of Marco Polo right there, right? And this, I think this was an account of the death of St. Thomas. St. Thomas died in India. Oh, by the way, the book, if I didn't say it, was called The Travels of Marco Polo. You gotta get the OG version because, of course, they try to revise and edit. But St. Thomas died in India, so he's talking about a province in India. He's talking about St. Thomas, and this guy died in India in 72 to 52 A.D. And I'm gonna get one more thing by Gerald Massey. He was a spiritualist, a writer, and he was into ancient Egypt. He was born in 1828. Gerald Massey wrote a book called A Book of Beginnings. We're going to go to page 18. And this is my last slide. And he says that the black race is the most ancient and that Africa is the primordial home. It is not necessary to show that the first colonizers of India were Negroes. But it is certain that the black Buddha of India was imaged in the Negroid type in the black Negro god, whether called Buddha or Sut Nasi. We have a datum, right? The carrier and the color of the proof of their origin. The people who first fashioned and worshiped the divine image in the Negroid mode of humanity must, according to all knowledge of human nature, have been Negroes themselves, right? All knowledge of human nature have been Negroes themselves. For the blackness is not merely mystical. The features and the hair of Buddha belong to the black race, and Nasi is the Negro name, right? Talks about Diana of Ephesus is found as a black figure. The hue isn't mystical. The features are as Negroid as they were those of the black Isis in Egypt. So another guy right there talking about other black gods, which once again are false gods. There's only one Most High, and his name is Yahawah, right? And the son's name is yahawashi. So anyway, with that, we're going to wind down, man. And once again, I want to say peace to the 12. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father, the Most High, Yahawah, in the name of his only begotten Son, yahawashi. Yahawah is the name of the Heavenly Father, who the world commonly calls God. Yahawashi is the Savior of the nation of Israel, who the world commonly calls Jesus Christ. I want to say shalom, means peace to people listening and learning. You brothers doing this work, truth, sincerity. And to yours that's been doing this thing before me, man. And also, actually, I'll just put that in. I'll pin the comment. If his brothers wanted to say how they could donate, I'll put my Cash App in the comments. But anyway, I'm out. Peace.